Oh man, it's time for another episode of No Label Live, the show all about labels and how they can be your biggest adversity or your biggest advantage. The choice is yours. Each week we bring on inspiring guests to share their story about how labels have impacted their life and the work that they do. So let's strap in and join this conversation. Hey guys, what's going on? It's your man Nathan over at No Label Defines Me Coaching, and I'm here with a new episode of No Label Live. And today we are talking to my man Ed Squire. Ed is the founder of a movement and a nonprofit called Me Too, What Now? And he's all about visible kindness. So Ed, so glad to have you, man, and I'm so glad that we're having, I think, a hard conversation for people to have, but a necessary conversation for people to have.
Yeah, I think so too, Nathan. And I just really appreciate you having me on your show today to talk about this. And it's something I really enjoy, actually. It's been, like you say, a hard topic, but it's very comfortable for me now. And I like to bring hope into people's lives that have had to deal with, these issues and the topic that we're going to get into for a bit. But then, the good things that can come out of it if you, get the courage to deal with it and, you know that there's a life outside of trauma and, horrible things you may have experienced in your life.
Yeah, man. And it's for No Label Live, it's so important because I imagine there's a tremendous label that gets placed on you when you are talking about the Me Too movement, and now you are like, okay, so I'm part of this Me Too, but what now?
Exactly, and let me give some background on what that means, because the Me Too term is so commonly used, and I'm glad that it is. Most people automatically reference it, especially today, with things like the Harvey Weinstein case and the abuse that women have gone through in the workforce, and having taken a stand for themselves and really pushing this issue to the point of where women are beginning to get justice and recognition, and in a sense that not recognition in a accolades type of way, but just it's when you're a survivor, you want to be heard. You want people to hear and understand you. And so I think, the term Me Too has been used long before the actual Me Too movement. It's been a term that's been used to, that survivors use to describe that they've been sexually abused at some point, which is what my organization is all about. And so I wanted to include men in it. I wanted to include everybody in it because it can be interpreted that way as well. And I wanted to get the focus off of just, identifying that something has happened to you, which is an extremely important step. The courage it takes to say, yes, this happened to me, and to do it. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be a public thing, but I believe, through all the work I've done in recovery over the years, is that you need to tell somebody at some point. Somebody needs to hear your story because it just relieves pressure from you, and it begins to free you, right? And that's why the Me Too movement is so huge, because women are speaking out. So the whole speaking out thing is so incredibly powerful. And I chose to do this not just for men or just for women. It was just for anybody who has experienced, in my case, and for my organization, it's survivors of childhood sexual abuse. Because the shame that you carry with that all your life. And a lot of people say, oh, I'm not ashamed, because we think we're okay. Over the years as an adult, we learn to deal with the things that have happened to us, and we really do rationalize that, hey, I'm okay. I have a family, maybe I have a job, and it's there, but it's not bothering me. But what ends up happening is something can trigger in your life to cause you to remember deeply and emotionally something that happened to you when you were a child. And that can bring on trauma. That can bring on very serious mental health issues that you never experienced before. Like in my case, complex post-traumatic stress disorder, major depression, and even and bipolar, which never really were, in my life before. I didn't know. I mean, I knew I was ADHD, which if you haven't noticed that yet, you will before we're done. But ADHD, when you put it in with all those other mental health issues, it became a real problem for me in my life. It became a problem in my job, in my relationships, in my marriage, when I began to understand that, hey, these things in the past actually are affecting me. So I wanted to focus on what now. So what do we do now? I just didn't like staying in the place of identifying that this has happened. And I think a lot of people tend to do that because it's hard enough saying that this happened, publicly for sure, but even privately to someone that you trust. But then, oh my God, what do I do now? Like, how the hell do I get out of this, right? This has now majorly impacted my life. I am noticing that there's certain dysfunctions in my life and it's affecting me. What do I do now? And so I started the organization almost 2 years ago. And it was, I'd been in recovery already for a couple of years. And I just wanted to do this without having reached a place of full recovery, right? I mean, I'm still working on it because it takes time. And I just wanted to find a way to provide information and connection and community with the survivors that are out there that wasn't really readily available on the internet. And that's what got me started with it. And it's been 2 years later now, and it's been an amazing journey for me personally, and for the people that have reached out to me, and that I've the community that has been created. It's been a powerful thing.
So my guess is somebody that's watching this or listening to this has experienced trauma in their life, and they haven't found that person to share that with. So they're still carrying their experience around with them, and I would imagine it's like a huge weight. So my question to you is, what was it like for you, the moment where you felt heard and you felt, I guess, heard and seen?
I'll never forget the day. It was in November, December of 2015. And I was having severe difficulties on my job, and I didn't understand what it was, what was causing me to lose my focus. I was a senior business consulting manager for Fortune 500 companies and global companies in the United States, Canada, and Europe. So I worked with, C-level and, V-level management, like CIOs and CEOs, vice presidents of companies like the Boeing Corporation, Wells Fargo, State Farm. And in Europe, I worked for major pharmaceutical companies. So just big organizations and with the top leadership. And you need to have your act together when you're dealing with these people, because if you don't, they'll pick you off in a second and you're gone, right? So I did that for 15 years. So I did well. And just what happened was I began to lose my ability to focus and concentrate. And they noticed it. So they would call my boss to say, hey, what's up with this guy? He doesn't seem to, you know what he's talking about. He's all over the place. And, they began to replace me on projects, and that was extremely disturbing. So that was in the background before I first talked to somebody. So what happened was I met a gentleman who's a new friend, and he had a nonprofit as well called the Brotherhood of Men, and his name is Zach, and it's for men that are divorced, trying to help them just acclimate into healthy post-divorce life, especially if you have children. And so we sat down, and I only known him for a few weeks, but I really trusted him. He's a good guy. We went to Starbucks, and he said, "So Ed," he said, "So tell me all about yourself. What's your story?" it just, it hit me. I thought, oh my God, at that point, I'd always been, I wasn't afraid to say that I was sexually abused as a child by my grandfather. I was sexually abused by my next door neighbor and my elementary school teacher. And I'd filed a lawsuit against the school board, over 3 decades later, because there's no statute of limitations where I used to live. And so that was okay. But what I was not okay with was the effects that had in my life as I grew up, and the lifestyle that I led was extremely shameful. And that is the thing. So I used my strength and courage to tell my story about my abuse to divert from the shameful lifestyle that I was living, right? So when he said, so tell me all about yourself, I wanted somebody to know what I was up to. And so I just took a deep breath and I said, well, Zach, and then for the first time, I told someone everything. And it's a very scary thing to do. But when you find someone that you trust, and that's what you need to do, is find someone that you trust, whether it's a friend or a family or even a stranger, just somebody that you know you're going to be okay with and safe, and you tell your story. What'll happen is my experience with Zach, he just, after I finished talking to him, he said, well, thank you very much for sharing your story with me. And I really appreciate that. And I was expecting drama. I was expecting him to oh my God, I'm so sorry. Oh, that's such a hard story. And the reality is my story is really no different than many other people's, right? We internalize things so much. We think, that, nobody else has ever experienced the depth of pain and trauma that I've experienced and the shame. And we come to find out that it's a very common human experience in general. And more, and whatever your situation is, in my case, it was being a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. After I told him that in November of 2015, he left, and I took a deep breath and I was like, wow, I just felt so good. And that's when that's only 4 years ago, not even 4 years ago. And that is what really opened up the doors for my healing and allowed me to get into things like I got into group therapy, and I got into regular visits with my psychiatrist, and began to learn, okay, what do I need to do to overcome these difficulties I'm having. I began to take an objective look at what I'm doing, and eventually the fear and the shame and the embarrassment of these things slowly went away. And that's why I'm really big with Me Too What Now. The focus of what I do is I put videos out there, right? Video has been my main platform on YouTube, and I'm just being myself, right? And so I just want to be authentic. I want people to find my content and go, oh wow, what I do isn't very professional, maybe, or where's this series that we're supposed to follow? It's not. It's kind of all over the map, But there's what has happened is, YouTube is a tough platform to be successful in, and especially on this topic. And after 2 years, I've got something like 18,000 minutes of views. I've got 139 subscribers, which isn't huge, but 18,000 minutes of views is pretty darn good. And especially with now having no previous experience in filming and being on camera and on this topic, it's very difficult. And the side benefit is the amount of people that have reached out to me on a personal level because of that has been it really has been the most satisfying thing I've ever done in my life. And that's a very long answer to your question. I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry. I think somebody needed to hear that. And I was thinking, just as you were talking about the 139 people that subscribed, I think we put so much emphasis on numbers, but we forget that that's 139 people. That's a lot of people.
I agree. And across all my platforms with Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram in 2 years, and I started with nothing. I didn't have an Instagram account or Twitter. There's over 5,000 people in total that are following me now. And I don't say that like, hey, I got 5,000 people, because 5,000 people is nothing compared to many others. But the point is that it's a quality group of people that are following me, right? I have interaction with many of them on a regular basis, and many people connect with me that are survivors and say, hey, I hate to ask you this, but would you be able to talk? And that is the number. For me, that means I'm successful. I don't care about the followers. I don't care about the subscribers. I don't care how many minutes I got on my videos. When I got somebody who's hurting, or if they know somebody who's hurting and they're related to them and they need to talk, I am so thankful that I am somebody that's out there that is that safe person for them to talk to. And that's what this is all about. I could care less about the numbers, but is anybody being affected? And even though you can't see it because it's very personal, it's even more gratifying because it's kind of secret to me, right? I got this life of being able to add value to people's lives one-on-one that I'm not going to get recognition for, and they're safe with me with what they share.
And so that kind of leads me into my next question. When you think about safety and trust, what are those key components that you've seen in your journey and that you try and bring into other people's journey as they open up to you? What are the key components of safety and trust that you think are necessary?
That is an awesome question. I think it's a hard one to answer. But what I would say is safety, of course, means that you trust the person with your story that it's not going to go somewhere else. You trust that they're not going to judge you, right? What survivors are looking for, especially at this stage of recovery, is they just want to be heard. We don't want people to, as much as I thought I wanted, I don't know if it's not pity, but sympathy. We want somebody to really care. The reality is just have someone listen objectively and be in the moment with you when you're talking, and not try to fix you or to try to say, oh, I'm so sorry. I mean, it's human nature to say, I'm sorry that happened to you. So that's, you have to accept that and say, thank you for saying that. I think that the big thing is just to have that ability to be in somebody's presence where you're in the moment with them, and they're not going to try to fix what's going on, or ask you questions about, oh, are you okay? And just to hear. I mean, and Zach was perfect, right? Out it came. Right? I'm on a roll. I can't believe I'm telling another human being these things, and he just listened, and he didn't give me responses and dramatic reactions. He just listened and then said, thank you very much for sharing your story with me. And that's, for me, that's safety and trust. And that's what opens up the door to a new life and really getting healing and whatnot.
So if there's somebody watching, listening, that's sitting there and they're on the fence, they're ready to tell their story, but they're scared, what do you have for them here today?
Well, I always encourage people, and this is what got me going on Me Too What Now, is that if you're really struggling to, either A, I don't want to tell anybody. I mean, I would like to, but there just is nobody. I reach out on the internet. I love that, right? There's many support groups and communities that are out there where you can be anonymous and share your story. Even if you're anonymous and sharing your story, that's a step. At least you put it out there. And, I always tell people that, if you go to my website and my YouTube channel, you're welcome to send me an email or DM me, connect with me, and I'll make every effort to spend some time with you and just chat. And that's why I did that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, right? So the goal is for people to get to my site. And the thing is, I have nothing for sale. There's no promotion. There's nothing. It's just a place of safety and a place to connect, a place that I hope that people find information on a one-to-one, human-to-human level, where they'll say, and I get this all the time, wow, you just I just really connected with your videos. But if my stuff isn't your style, and that's cool too, then I always recommend go to some of the big nonprofits like, for men, there's an organization called 1in6.org. And there's, if you Google childhood sexual abuse organizations, a lot of information comes up, and a lot of these, all of them provide opportunities to connect in various ways and provide information. So, I'm not everybody's cup of tea, but go online and use the internet as a resource to just take a step.
Yeah. It all starts with that first step, right?
Yeah, it sure does.
So that's great information. So now you're kind of attacking this with kindness. So talk about your philosophy on kindness.
Awesome. Well, thank you for asking that one. So I reached a point last year where, I have a lot of enthusiasm and I have a lot of energy in my personality. And I was like, okay, God, I need an outlet for this. I just, all my life, I've just needed an outlet. And I love encouraging people. And Me Too What Now is based on kindness. That's all I do, is I just extend kindness to people in any way that I can. And nothing makes me feel better than extending kindness towards somebody. And, I love, you do an assessment of your strengths and weaknesses and what you're good at in your life and find out what you should do. And for me, I always thought it was leadership or entrepreneur or something like that, business owner. But strangely, my number one strength is encouragement. I was like, okay. It kept coming up as encouragement. And, I've always I've had this dream of being a motivational speaker. Man, I'd love to be a motivational speaker. But to do that, you need to have something to have to speak about. You need to have done something, right? And so, definitely Me Too What Now has given me a platform, given me the experience, given me the story, given me some credibility. And I decided, it all started with just wanting to have an e-commerce shop for Me Too What Now, just to make something more, provide some value for people. And so I started creating and designing my own logo and sayings on T-shirts, and the term visible kindness came to my mind. And what I did was, when I was first started recovery, I would wear there's 2 T-shirts that I had. When I wore them, and I was depressed most of the time, and one of them said, "Be kind whenever possible. It is always possible," and it's by the Dalai Lama, right? And then the other one says, "One kind word can change someone's entire day." And both those shirts, they got a reaction from people when I would wear them, right? They would look at it and go, "Oh, that's a great shirt." Or I had one lady say to me one time, I was getting my coffee, she goes, "Well, what's my word? Do you have a word for me? Because I could sure use that." And, if you're a survivor and you're going through these things in your recovery, I think even humans in general, we tend to be inwardly focused, right? We're all about ourselves, and we're thinking about what's on our phone and where we're going, what we're doing. We're not so aware of the people around us. And these shirts just forced me to pop out of a depressive, inwardly focused state and interact with somebody. And it made me happy. So I thought, well, I'm going to make a few T-shirts and put them online and make them available for Me Too What Now. But the whole kindness thing didn't really fit with Me Too What Now. It was just a different thing, right? So I worked really hard on this, for 3 or 4 months last year. And I thought, what, I'm going to start a new thing that is it's my what now, right? So Me Too What Now, my tagline says, find yourself, live yourself, give yourself. And that's really the 5 steps of recovery from trauma from a clinical standpoint, but I use it in my own words and narrowed it down to 3. Mm-hmm. So you find your identity, you begin to, because you lose your identity to some degree, greater or less than other people. But for me, it was always, who am I in my life? Because it got stolen from me at a very young age. And when you begin to do the work to figure out who you are and be comfortable with the person that you are, you start to live that. I always felt that a natural progression from that would be your life would be like an outflow, and you would naturally want to do something for somebody else in whatever capacity that is, right? And so for me, just kindness really lined up with my strength of encouragement. And I thought, I'm gonna start a new organization that really proves proves out the work of, if you do the work to, find yourself and live yourself, then something organic will come out of that. And kindness was it for me. So I'm in a pre-launch stage of an organization called visiblekindness.com. And I have a landing page there. You go there, and there's a video that loops where I'm sitting in an alley with a street person, and we're having a conversation. And I happened to film it at the time, and it's just to me, it's just a really powerful little clip that shows me meeting with a stranger and shaking his hand. And you can subscribe there. And the purpose of subscribing is for me to get information from people, just your name and your email, to give you the launch information for what's coming and when I'm going to go live and whatnot. Again, it's, although I do have an e-commerce shop for that, that's not going live later, but I'm just not into selling and pushing and getting somebody's email address to try to market something. It's to help them, hopefully there's a benefit in visible kindness that they see through the launch. And I'm starting I can't believe I'm starting a podcast. I'm like talk about afraid.
Man,
so
you got it.
I'm going to do that, start the Visible Kindness podcast. And some of the things that I have planned are I have 6 steps to visible kindness. Like, what does that mean? So I'm going to teach people the 6 steps of visible kindness. I would love to have the opportunity to go into schools and work with student bodies and offer, hey, if you guys would like to create a professionally made video of like a kindness flash mob of some kind, I'll organize it with you. I'll help you. You need to there'll be a marketing campaign that they can put up in the school over a certain length of time. I'll come in and speak a couple of times and then film and then give that video to them. It'll be a fundraising thing too, because it's still part of the nonprofit. So they raise the funds to get this done. When it's done, they get the video, and then hopefully they'll have the opportunity from the school to have an assembly and show the entire school this video, but certainly make it available to everyone. And I'm going to be doing acts of kindness on the streets, and I've been filming myself on the streets. I'll set up a couple of cameras, and that always gets attention from people. People ask me what's going on, and I say, I'm doing a social experiment. Would you be interested in just give me 2 minutes of your time for a social experiment? It'll benefit a nonprofit that I have. And so people are like, okay, well, what's it all about? So I get them lined up in frame, and I give them something. And what I've been doing so far is I give them an envelope, and in it there might be money, or there might be a gift card to a coffee shop, or just a card that says something nice about them. Thanks them for just being a part of my experiment. And I get a visceral reaction on film from them when they open this, and to see them light up. Everybody lights up in some kind of way. And then the experiment is me saying, how do you feel now? And how do you feel when I first asked you to do this, when you weren't quite sure what you were dealing with? And then, I followed up with saying, studies have shown that acts of kindness, when you engage in them, they produce serotonin, endorphins are increased, and there's a sense of well-being and warmth that comes over you in connection with people, not only for the giver of kindness, but also for the receiver and for observers that are around. And so I'm capturing those interviews, and that'll be on a new YouTube channel that goes up. And I'll be doing interviews like this and filming them as well. And so it's going to be really, really, really exciting.
So I want you to think about your last week, and I want you to think about what's the one act of kindness that you created last week that just made you light up the most.
So that's I actually posted that on my Facebook page. When I wear my shirt that says visible kindness on it, it gets people's attention. It's like, what does that mean? So I was sitting beside a lady on a light rail train, and she says to me, so what is visible kindness? And as usual, I'm all in my head about something, right? I'm not thinking encouraging. I'm not, I struggle like everybody else does to be in the moment, right? And I'm like, oh crap, I got that shirt on, right? I need to do something kind. So she goes, what does visible kindness mean? And so the reaction she got was, I just said, and I reached in my pocket and I pulled out $5 and I said, here. And the look on her face was like, what? And I said, yeah, it's just visible kindness. It's just an act of kindness. And what my organization is all about is practicing intentional, spontaneous acts of kindness. And the reason why I have the merchandise shop is for people to be able to wear clothing that they can use as a tool to be more intentional, that's going to create a spontaneous moment for them to be kind. I didn't want to do random acts of kindness because there's nothing wrong with it, but what I'm doing is, this is me. It's practicing intentional, spontaneous acts of kindness. And an act of kindness, it doesn't have to be money, right? It can be anything that just makes somebody smile or improves their day or makes them feel good. Or it could be something major like helping to resolve a homeless issue, but it doesn't matter. It's just an act of kindness for that situation in that moment. And so for me, that's what it was. It was like, so what is visible kindness? And I was like, here, $5. And she was like, well, wow, and thank you. Right? And then we talked about what I was doing and whatnot. You caught me off guard. I needed to do something, and everybody likes to get a little bit of money, so that's why I gave it to her.
There's power in clothing for sure, man. Nobody can see this, but I'm wearing one of my shirts that says "You Are Heard" on it. I think that is one of the most powerful. Like I had people fill out a survey, and that was the one thing that came up the most, was people wanted to be heard more than they actually wanted to be seen. And like you said, my thing, no label defines me. If I'm wearing my no label defines me shirt, people stop me on the street and they're like, what do you, isn't that a oxymoron? Aren't you like
defining yourself,
contradicting yourself? Aren't you wearing a label? I'm like, yes, but here's what it means and what it means to me. And it starts conversation, man. And that's a lot of what everything is about. Yeah, absolutely.
That's it. That's a good one. I like that. One I have made is similar. It's not I didn't coin the phrase. I found it, but it just says "you matter," and that gets attention too. Because a lot of people don't feel like they do, and I like that. That's those are two good ones.
And one other story that came to my mind around kindness is the idea that there was one I went through a training, and one of our exercises was to look at people and smile for a whole week. Just be intentional about looking people in the eye and smiling. And I remember going to a gas station and filling up on gas, and there was a lady on the other side of the other tank, and she went in to like get something out of her car, and I just looked at her and I smiled, and I kept my eyes looking at her and smiling. And so she got ready to leave. She went all the way around the gas tank to look at me again.
Come on.
She was like, I think she was just like, I don't know what to do here. But she left and she was smiling, man. So I really love the idea of the intentional, spontaneous acts of kindness. And like it can be something as simple as a smile.
You just gave me an idea for another shirt, and like I've got about 15 designs, and half of them are mine and half are from other authors. But the one I just thought of while you were saying that is just get a shirt that says "I'm smiling," right? And you may not be smiling when you're wearing it, so it will prompt people to say, "Hey, you're not smiling," right? Yeah, I like that. I'm smiling, and if you are smiling, they may ask you why. What are you smiling? Right? But I'm trying to create. Its content is what it is, right? To get a reaction from people, to force a spontaneous interaction with somebody, and that's something simple that's not complex, and wearing a shirt that has words like that, people take notice, right? Because you're dealing with when you're dealing with human nature. It's funny. It's called humankind for a reason. I just thought of that before the show. we call it humankind, not human hate or human disassociation or human isolation. Well, actually, we're calling it that now with COVID-19, but it's still humankind, right? That's what we are wired for that. And you don't have to speak the same language in order for someone to receive kindness from you either. Isn't that amazing, right? Love, hate, kindness, people, they know what that means without you having to speak the language either.
Yeah, like we can live totally separate experiences, but we've all experienced the same emotions. So we at some level understand from our own experience what that means to us. So I agree completely. I only have a couple more questions. First, is there one of the steps for kindness? You said there are 6. Is there one that you can share with us here today?
Yes, I'm still developing those, so I want to make sure I got my first step right. I was at an event on the weekend at a podcasting summit, and I had the opportunity to pitch or to sell, to promote visible kindness to the crowd. And it was, I'm nervous standing in front of people talking, and I'm nervous with the idea of doing a podcast. I've talked about it so much, I have to do it, and I've got the equipment, so I got to do it. But when I went on stage, I was like, okay, at the very minimum, I want to give them the definition, which I've given you, right? Intentional, spontaneous acts of kindness. And then you think I could remember the mission? No mission, right? The 6 steps, no. And I looked at the host and I shrugged my shoulders and looked at him. I said, I'm blank. And he looked and shrugged his shoulders back at me like, nothing I can do. You're all on your own. So, yeah. So the first step to the 6 steps of visible kindness is the very practice of being in the moment, right? And so, what does that mean? It means something different. I've learned to be in the moment with my recovery when it comes to maybe meditation or just everything I'm doing, just to be present. But what does it mean to be in the moment when it comes to an intentional act of kindness that you want to do? How do you relax in that moment? Because it doesn't mean you have to do something kind everywhere you go all the time. So how do we get into that mode where we're aware, right? Without it being something that's a burden to us, like, oh God, I got to always be in the moment here. It's not like that. How do we naturally become just more aware of the people that are around us so that we can be ready for something spontaneous to happen? Because if it's spontaneous, that means you're not going to make it happen. It will just happen. But if you're not aware, I believe that spontaneity without awareness won't happen. Spontaneity will happen, but you won't see it because you're not aware. And that's like, we're always taught that, be prepared for an opportunity when it comes, because then when, you'll see it. And if we're not prepared, opportunities will come. And I don't think we will see them when they come. So it's a step of preparedness for this, this way of thinking, being visibly kind.
Be prepared. I'm all about that. I was a Boy Scout, so I know that well. Thanks so much for sharing that, and I can't wait to see everything that starts happening with this movement, because I see that taking off, especially in the times we live in right now. We are navigating a new world at the moment, trying to figure everything out, so everybody needs a little kindness in their life.
Yes.
All right, so where is the best place for people to connect with you right now and get involved?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. I would say that, the best thing to do is, now that I have 2 websites, metowhatnow.com is a great place. So that's all letters, no characters, me too, METOO, whatnow.com. And you can find all my other, my YouTube channel and Instagram and Twitter from there. And the other one is visiblekindness.com. And it's only a landing page right now, but if anybody's interested in finding out what I'm going to do and, my mission and the 6 steps to visible kindness and some of the things that we have planned, we'll come back to you in a auto email. So, and and this is the great thing. It's real easy to get guests for this show. I have a ton of guests lined up for enough to get me through the whole year. And so if you have a kindness story, or if you're involved in whatever you do for a living or your job or a side thing, and it involves kindness, where maybe you're a coach or anything that you do, drop me an email at ed@visiblekindness.com, and I'd love to have you on the show.
And we'll make sure and drop all that stuff so you guys can click on and connect right from the show notes here. Is there anything before we get off today that you want to touch on that we haven't had the opportunity to touch on yet?
I think, because Me Too What Now is so near and dear to my heart, I'm really excited about visible kindness. Right? I'm just really, really pumped. But I never want to leave Me Too What Now in the dust, like, oh, I did that, now I'm on to this. And so, if there's anybody that is listening to this podcast that is a survivor of childhood sexual abuse or sexual abuse at all, then I believe that everything happens for a reason, and there's a reason why they're listening to this podcast. And check out my website, my website, my videos, or just Google some help, and just take a step towards finding someone that you feel safe with, that you can tell their story. I will never ever stop promoting or saying or encouraging people to tell their story to someone that they trust.
All right. Awesome. Yeah. I believe that too. If you are listening to this show, watching this show, you were called to it for a reason. And it's going to be something, there's something in here that's meant for you or meant for someone that you know. So make sure, if you feel that you share that out, because there's somebody that's hurting that needs to hear this and needs to find a place to feel safe to share their story. My final question for you is, what does No Label Defines Me mean to you?
Well, when I was at this podcasting event, a lot of the podcasters would provide feedback to people like myself who were pitching what they wanted to be on these podcasters' show for. And so the comments that came back, the most common one was that these podcasters were saying, look, we don't want to be sold on what you're doing. We want to know you. We want your authentic, who you are as a person. Not, yeah, you need to have a pitch, but you need to cover certain things about what you do. But we just want to feel the warmth and the connection with you. And so, when I went there, I thought, that's always been a struggle for me. I've always, because of the abuse, I've always put on a performance, right? I've been like a codependent person who is wanting people to think something about me. I'm wanting to impress people. And so authenticity, if I could have on my gravesite, I've said this very often. I said it to my therapist. I said, if there's one thing I could have out of my life when I die, if on my gravestone it said, Ed Squire, if you knew him, he was the authentic person that you met. And that's always been a struggle for me. And so, for me, it means figuring out who you are and not caring in a healthy way what other people have to think. And it just goes with find yourself, live yourself, give yourself with Me Too What Now. When you do the work to find out who you are and start living that, there's a sense of freedom that comes along with just not being ashamed of who you are, not being scared of who you are. And you know what? I'm sorry, but we've all got weird things about us. Everybody does. Nobody is like, wow, that guy's like everything, right? But the comfort that you have in finding who your true authentic self is and living that is, I think it's the greatest gift you can give yourself in life, far above anything else.
That's powerful. Well, I want to thank you for coming on and joining us on No Label Live, and thank you for sharing your story as authentically as you did. Um, Make sure, guys, if you, like I said earlier, if you found anything that supports you in this moment, make sure and share this so it can support many other people. And you can catch us again next week for another episode of No Label Live. You guys are up to big things, and when you're up to big things, you must be patient, you must be diligent, and you must never, never quit. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of No Label Live. If you enjoyed it, make sure and share it with a friend and tag me. Let me know your thoughts on the episode. Connect with me on YouTube and Instagram at _Nathan_Todd. And make sure and let a friend know that they are more than their label. They matter, and they are one step away from their success. And remember, my friend, you're up to big things. And when you're up to big things, you must be patient, you must be diligent, and you must never, never quit. And you can catch new episodes of No Label Live here every Friday.